For anybody who is not aware, I have mentioned in some classes this month that for April, in May, because I have all of my April and May classes up already, I've entirely reworked my class structure and schedule. And some of it is a result of just how this year has gone. And I can only do so much. And the kinds of classes that I was teaching were producing a lot of video content, which then was like, I don't have the time. Like I was like struggling to try to get everything done. And so it was just kind of adding stress. And I'm like, I just don't need to do this way. No one is telling me I have to do my classes any sort of a way. So I've restructured how I'm doing them, how often I'm doing them, and the specific rotation. So you'll see that if you look ahead in my class schedule. This is the question here. Did I update my little pocketbook thing? I did. Okay. So as an example, one of the big changes you'll see is my class on Wednesday, April Fool's, but not a joke. I'm starting to do what I'm calling weather reports, so Astro Weather Reports. So what I've previously done each month astrologically for at least a year, probably longer. I know I've been recording them for over a year, but I'm sure I've been doing them longer than that, is doing 1 to 2 astrology transit classes each month. And in each class, I would talk about anywhere from 4 to 5 transits. And sometimes there would be so many transits, I would have to record some separately in addition to the 2 classes. So as you can see, that creates a lot of volume because I'm talking about so many things in depth. And then putting all those into videos and putting a bunch of them into social posts, depending on the type, it was just like getting to be way too much. And I also want to make sure it doesn't get stale, because once you go a certain cycle around the sun, as we have, it's going to start repeating for the personal planets. I'm like, I don't want that to be boring for me and for my students. Of like, okay, well, you might as well just go back and basically watch the one from last year, but here's a couple, extra details. So I wanted to make a major structural change to how I'm teaching about transits. So you'll see if you look at the description for this class. So I've already added the April one, that's for Wednesday, and I've added one at the end of April for May, so ahead of next month or the next month. And what I am doing instead, and I've already prepared all my notes for this, is I've looked at every single transit. So I'm actually going to be, in some ways, covering more, but through a different perspective. So rather than sitting and going through each transit very much in detail and be like, oh, let's go through chart examples, all that stuff, I'm kind of keeping some of that out because I already have my blog where I go through the transits, as I normally have in these classes. My blog is there, so you get an overview of each of them, tells you where to look. And I also have my calendar, which does a version of the same thing, but also gives you the exact date, time, and gives you the alert. Plus, it's searchable, and you can look at the whole year. So I already have 2 other resources that are kind of covering this. So I was realizing I'm producing a lot of redundancy here, and in some ways that was helpful because I could just link everything together. But I'm like, okay, people have ways that they could access still that experience. But what I'm doing instead is looking at like every single transit. So all of the aspecting transits, because I don't even really get to talk about those all that often unless there's some big, huge marker or of significance. So instead I'm looking at like the 30,000 feet of what is the storyline, what is happening with some of the planetary movement, and what does that arc mean for you? And so I picked 4 different planets. So it's still very substantive. It's just I'm teaching it a bit of a different way. So you can still bring your chart to the class, but I'm trying to have it be a little bit less completely 101 and do a bit more of like a 201 situation. And of course, if people have questions, you can still ask questions. And then I also have the other resources that I mentioned that are like a little step before. Plus I have my course. I released a course 10 days ago that go very, very in-depth into understanding all these concepts. So yeah, again, I have a lot of different resources. So this is just a change that I have been kind of itching to make really since Saturn went into Aries, which was in February. And I knew I had to delay it. I knew I had to put some different pieces in place before I could get there. But that is what we're going to be doing on Wednesday. So if you would like to attend Wednesday's class, it is almost exactly 48 hours from now. So it's 11 a.m. Eastern. So this will be the first time doing this model. I really had to think about it really hard yesterday. Like, what do I want this to look like? And how can I make sure that it's clear and like kind of what's like the new format? So this will be an experiment to see how I like it, how I can modify it, and then use that to inform the one for May. So that is the big update. And then otherwise, I'm having a consistent rotation of doing a meditation class each month. So I'm having that in as a staple. So I have one on April 6th. And then what I'm doing is kind of continuing what I was doing previously, where I'm alternating natal chart readings once a month and then the psychic development workshop. So we just did that last week, I think. So we won't have a psychic development workshop in April, but we'll have one in May. And that's that every other month is kind of what I've been it's just worked out that way, but I've been doing that for probably the better part of 6 months, maybe even longer than that. So that rotation will continue. And then in place of these, so I've been in a pattern since I think like August of it came through channeling. So part of the reason I'm sharing all this is I always channel my schedule. And it just started coming through over the summer to change how I was doing these week ahead readings. And the first change was to start pre-recording. So it's like once a month pre-record. And then it started changing, and now it was like do like half of them pre-recorded. So then I was maybe doing like 2 a month or something. And then it started changing again, and then this class, the one that we're doing today, the card spread class, this emerged I think in January. I think this is maybe my third time doing this format. So it's been shifting and it's evolving. Like every few months I'll get a note to adjust it. And so what also came through is to now just totally pre-record. So that's what I was saying, this will be my last one for the time being, unless something changes starting in June. But at least for April and May, I'm not going to be doing any of these live after today. So they'll be pre-recorded, which will mean that I'll do it in the week prior, if not maybe in a couple weeks prior, and they'll drop on my YouTube channel first thing in the morning on Mondays. So right after midnight Eastern time, it'll pop up. And it makes them shorter. You'll get them faster. So there's a lot of pros to that. And it's easier for me for editing because I have less content to edit because it's just me. So I'm faster. But what I will be doing is once a month, I will be coming on here to do mini readings. So what's also been happening with these week ahead classes is I'd have some of them where there were no mini readings and some of them where there were. And that's kind of fluctuating. So now my new schedule is once a month on a Monday. So the one for April is the 20th. I will come on here specifically to do mini readings. So it'll just be fully dedicated to that. So if you're interested in receiving a mini psychic reading from me, then those will be opportunities to do that. So I mentioned before Saturn and Aries. That's in my 10th house. It's in my career. It's like, how am I showing up? What am I doing for my business, which is, my teachings on here. And also it's the new year. Astrological new year was March 20th. So I've really been itching to have a new start and do certain things differently. So it's all kind of coming together in this way where I've made a lot of changes. I'm trying to outline the changes as clearly as possible. So I've, obviously explaining it now, but I put out some different social media posts, like changing a little bit of my services, like tweaking or repackaging them, rebranding them, merging them, retiring some of them. So I'm just kind of doing a lot of cleanup and tidying, and then that recalibration to just see how things are going to go now in this next leg in the new year, in the new chapter. So those are the big updates. And yeah, April starting on Wednesday is going to be kicking off the new era, and we'll see how all that transpires. But I appreciate you being here. whether you are totally new or you've been coming to my classes for a year and a half since I started teaching on here. It feels like it's way longer than a year and a half. It doesn't sound long enough to me. Feels like it's been a really long time. But for people that have been here pretty much since day one, I appreciate everybody coming back. I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be teaching once a week. And it's just that the nature of some of what I'm teaching is different. Some of it's the same. And, still channeling my schedule as usual. But I'm just putting different info in different spots.